Greetings, Darklings, from across the interweb. It is I, Precious Ken, the Duchess, for the Sounds and Shadows podcast. Welcome, one and all. It's very exciting today. Collin and I were in the studio all day, finishing up recording the Amaranth tracks, so we actually get to see each other in person. We got to have lunch and breakfast and coffee, and then Katy came by. So we don't have to do like the kick over on the different windows. Everybody can just say hi. Say the thing though, Katy.
It is I, Katy.
There it is. Okay. We have a very special guest with us as always, and I am excited. Mr. Bradley Bills is with us from the band Chant. In addition to many other things, welcome, Bradley.
Hey everyone. Ken, thanks for having me. Katy, good to see you.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you here.
I've been chatting with Katy, getting this set up. So
now, see, I didn't know that you guys had been talking and everything, but that's cool. Usually, I'm the one who has to always deal with talking with everybody.
We don't even know how useless we'd be without Katy.
It's true.
We're not even aware.
Shout out to Katy.
it's
I
good
want
to
to
see all of
start.
you.
I want to start here, Bradley, because maybe not everybody is as familiar with your history, and you have an awesome one. I mean, I involved in so many projects and so many bands that were influential to me and have done amazing things, especially in the industrial scene. So why don't you start out, tell me a little bit about your history that brought you up to this project, Chant, and some of the people you've worked with.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll try to give a Cliff Notes version. I've been playing drums since I was 14, and I think I was in every kind of band growing up in the late 80s, all through the 90s, from punk to metal, discovered industrial in the early 90s. My roots really go deep into prog rock, so there's a little bit of that. And I studied percussion in college, so very influenced in world percussion, Dead Can Dance, Creatures, what Susie and Budgie did, Crash Worship, and all that, culminated up to where I really felt like I wanted to have a band like that. But every band I had been in, I was just the drummer. So when the band would break up, I was starting all over again. So kind of inspired by what, Trent Reznor did and what many started to do, inspired by him, is I'm going to have to do it all myself, right? I'm going to try to, I know my major and minor scales. I'm going to learn how to write music. I'm not a pianist by any means, but I know piano and I'm going to get started. So Chant started in the early 2000s. I think between 2003 and 2006, a lot of it was instrumental. A lot of it was very techno kind of driven, DJ Tiesto kind of, but with tribal drums on top of it. But I definitely was leaning towards like industrial because I'm a Wax Trax fan, big Ministry, KMFDM, Nine Inch Nails fan, Thrill Kill Cult. All those guys are my top, influences as well. And I'd say that within the first, 5 to 10 years, I just played everywhere I could all over Texas. Chant was a one-man band. I would never dreamed I would attempt vocals, and I wasn't. I don't think I'll ever be a great singer in my mind, but I think I've learned how to use my voice for what I want for this project. And I think I found my voice in around 2008, 2009 with my second album. And that's when really, the 8 or 9 years of playing all over Texas and touring out DIY style as far as I could. I'd opened up for Thrill Kill Cult several times when they came through Texas, and opened up for Pigface, got to know Martin, and they saw how hard I was working. And in 2011, I got a chance to do a run of shows with Lords of Acid, which was amazing. And that's where I met Zoog from Angel Spit. And we've been friends and in touch ever since. He's done some remixes for me, and I played on Angel Spit's record, The Product. And then after Lords came, a couple of years later, came the KMFDM, which was a huge part in the history of Chant, because I ended up doing, 3 tours in the US with them over those 2 years. Sasha and I really bonded, and I think he's got a little bit of punk rock in him, and doesn't take bullshit. And has a that sense of humor, and so really enjoyed touring with them. Did some remixes, working with them, and in 2017, well, and right around that same time, I got a chance to play for De Krups as well. Jurgen lives in Austin, Texas, and he had seen Chant and invited me to play and actually open up for them on their Europe tour, but play drums for them as well.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So in the middle of all this, I did that tour and did double duty, which was physically challenging to open up a full Chant show. And then there was a second band, and then I'd play a full headlining set with De Krups. So that was fun, an amazing experience. And, then I'd gotten to know Buzz and Groovy Man. And when it's very well known, their drummer, Justin, he's a friend of mine, Justin Bennett, he's an amazing drummer, and also plays for Skinny Puppy and Ogre. And he just happened to be double booked touring with Ogre. I think they were touring with KMFDM. And he couldn't do the first major leg of Thrill Kill's 30th anniversary tour. And so they thought of me and they gave me a call, and I was thrilled to do it.
Yeah.
So getting to play for one of your favorite bands. And it was a lovely tour, and started working on the fourth and most recent Chant record, but then I put that on pause in 2019 because Martin Adkins, asked if I wanted to drum with him in Pigface for the.
When Martin calls, you pick up that phone. That's
it was really great, and of course I'd been in touch with him throughout the years. I'd opened up for Pigface, and he invited me on stage to play that night, and of course they do that often. It's so inclusive, such an inclusive project, but I knew it at the time, but it felt good to get called up there, like back in 2005 or whenever it was. And when he started shifting Invisible Records to where he was, sharing knowledge and lecturing more, I actually went up to Chicago, and I was in the very first kind of class he did in Invisible Records. He and Curse did a welcome to the music business, you're fucked music seminar for a lot of us starting out artists trying to figure out how to navigate the ever-changing landscape of the cesspool of the music business. But I remember going up there, this would have been about a year after I had done the Pigface show, opening up for them, and Chant was very raw at this point. I didn't really even know what I was doing or where it was going to go, but that was a big part in the trajectory of how I did things too. So he would come down and lecture for South by Southwest. I'd have a Chant show. He'd come up and play drums with me. Of course, Curse and I had become really good friends because he's a Texas guy, and
Yep.
I mentioned that I played drums in Evil Mothers when they did their reunion shows. I think that was in 2011, and and I of course got to play with the Skate Nigs. Phildo Owen, who was in Revco and did the Skate Nigs, and he's here in Austin as well. So Austin's always been kind of a cool, Butthole Surfers are from here. Al lived here for a while, and I grew up in Denton near Dallas, and I had moved down to because I knew that Screw was down here, and Evil Mothers and Skate Nigs, and just felt like the scene in Austin was really eclectic at the time in the early 90s. And it's been a great time. And on that, I mean, I guess really Chant kind of fulfilled what I intended was, I'm going to get a band together that I can showcase my drumming, sometimes overindulgent, but really show what I can do. And maybe some established bands will notice me and I can get to play for them, because I really am a drummer first and foremost and love playing. But have to admit, I've enjoyed writing, learning how to write and craft albums with Chant, and it's become a voice and a great creative outlet for me. And that's just been, something that I've been laser focused on, particularly this last couple of years, getting this record out.
Yeah, you brought up a couple things. Well, you brought up many things there, which was awesome. But one of which I'm really glad you gave a shout out. Curse is a friend of ours. We're huge fans, and a big part of the Austin scene. And one thing I noticed on your resume as we were going through this, Evil Mothers, which was such an important band, especially to Austin, and I think that's just such a cool experience. And you brought up, you were a drummer first and foremost. And to me, when I hear the newest album that you have, Hydra, that's what struck me. The power of it is that you don't always see that where the primary person in the band you comes from the standpoint of drums, which is really, to me, what makes industrial music. That percussion usually, to me, is what sets it aside and really gives it that tone. And I love the fact of how interesting and intricate and everything going on with your percussion, and the fact that it doesn't always sound electronic. It sounds very organic. And I see behind you the big kit. And when you were kind of talking about being a drum nerd or prog, I'm just like, yeah, that's a Neil Peart kit back there. Like I see, and so I guess my question for you on it is, how important is it to you to lead with the drums when you're making new material for Chant? How much is that your base, which you then build out from because it's your original instrument?
It's been an interesting progression, because I'd answer that 15 years ago when I started. It's the most important thing is what my answer would be, because that's what I knew. And almost all of the songs that I crafted were always drums first, and it would be a drum riff instead of a guitar riff. And then the melody would build off of that. I'd have a synth line going, and then I'd have to go figure out what key it's in and can I even get my voice there. And I would, craft a melody and what lyrics may be all around the drums. And some interesting songs came out of that. I think that I still play live today every once in a while. But as I think got better at what I was doing with songwriting, and as I got better at piano, I would start hearing melodies in my head instead. It's all still very rhythmic. And on the new album, examples of both would be President God was a song that I had first and foremost. I had the drum riff to it. I didn't know it'd be called that.
Yeah.
But that was a drum pattern. It's so fun to play. It's so primal and driving.
Those toms are next level. It's just incredible drive to it that just takes you out of your head. And as a singer, I think we all, Collin as a bass player or Katy, when you hear a new song, focus on kind of your instrument first, maybe. I think that's common for musicians. But when I hear something like that, and especially the tom fills on it, it was the drums that I was drawn to before you even sang a note. And that's what made it so powerful.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And there's songs throughout Chant's, catalog that are like that start with the drums. And there's some of the fun ones for me, obviously, to play live. And now live, it's not a one-man band. I bring on multiple musicians, and it's much more like the Crash Worship or the Evil Mothers I wanted, with multiple drummers going.
Yeah.
But there's another new song on the record called Uprising that was just a piano piece that I was playing. And it actually was going to be much slower and different. And then as I was very hurriedly walking to the studio, like I don't want to forget this, then that doom boom 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 came in my head, and I layered them together, so that's how that song. But that song came from all of the music first, and it was really written out, lyrics and melody and everything, before I ever even added any rhythm to it. So and knew what tempo it would be. So I think it's always going to be a driving force in what I do. But I think particularly with this record, it was more song based. And also I kind of focused on getting the songs once lyrics started flowing, and I had collected lyrics over the years, I wanted to make each song that it could stand on its own and be very direct. So I think I have a tendency to write, as many industrial artists do, some very long songs, right? But I think there are more short, quick fire songs on this album. And I think it helps move the story along, because Hydra ended up being a story.
Yeah,
You
a
know,
concept album, really, in a lot of ways, you know?
yeah, the President God character was a little bit left over from my previous record, Brave New Apocalypse, where I had this kind of um, tent revival preacher, reverend, preaching out, the new way. And it was all Brave New Apocalypse. It was touching on, that everybody's obsessed that the end of the world's going to happen while they're here on the planet.
Yeah,
It's almost like they want it to happen because they want to witness it, because it will confirm that their religion or their belief is correct. If the rapture would only happen when I'm here, I don't have to face death, because it's
right.
going to happen while I never have to face death and the unknown. I'll just float up and be fine. And I thought, well, what if this guy ran for office? And this is actually, pre-Trump. I mean, I was thinking about this.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, well, if this megalomaniac, was to do that, mixing religion and politics, this president God kind of character came up. But it also matched and a counter line that I had written. Um, I'm more powerful dead than you are alive. And I think that's a very
Yeah,
defiant thing for somebody fighting for freedom, that, you know, um, the idea of freedom or being free, or the hope of equality and fighting for what's right, whatever authoritarian government is in place, um, whatever they do, they can never kill that idea. And in fact, if they kill the leader of that movement, that idea just spreads more. So like a hydra. So I had that
yeah,
idea, and you know, as I started writing and collecting all the lyrics, I collect lyrics all the time, so that when I finally am done playing, I can't say no when some of my heroes ask me to play drums. So chant records get spaced out pretty far apart. And
sure.
when I was ready to really buckle down and work on this, it was January, February 2019, where I'm like, sorry guys, I'm not playing for anyone. I'm going to write this record. And I wrote it in 4 months, all of it, all 9
Wow.
tracks. And one of them actually was I had played live before, the Sidelines. It was an older track that I'd been playing around with, but it happened to fit the theme. And before I knew it, they all worked together. And then as I started laying out what it could be a track listing, it was a very fine line of, this may work, I'll see if it works. But I was very careful not to start purposely writing a song like, okay, I need a song to piece the story together here, so the
Yeah,
lyrics have to be this and the music because if I did, then it would have come across forced. And it was just a happy accident that I liked. I still, like the flow of it, and it does tell a linear story. The first song's an overture, then you meet President God, then it's all about him manipulating the media. Then it's all about him making people feel like it's a one-party system so that they'll stay at home and won't vote.
right.
And that's a very sarcastic song, one-party system. Um, and then, of course, it continues to flow until you meet the Hydra character,
Yeah,
I just wanted to go back up a little bit because you were talking about your live show and where that's gone. Can you describe a little bit what that show looks like now?
Sure. Well, it's funny. Ken, you mentioned the Neil Peart kit behind me.
yeah,
It's like, I think the Chant drum set looks bigger than it really is, because it's stretched out flat across the front of the stage. So, but we do bring extra floor toms, and it can get a little crazy.
I always
But
get a kick out of that because I have a kid brother. Well, kid brother. I'm 43 and he's 41 now, but is a drummer and was our whole lives growing up, and he always had like a 24-piece set, and I would tease him and laugh at him, like, really, bro, do you need those wind chimes? Yes, I
yes,
absolutely need
you
those.
absolutely need the wind
So
chimes.
I just get a kick out of the
that.
idea of Neil Peart
Yeah.
birthed this generation of drummers that need to have 40 pieces of equipment everywhere they go.
It's there. I like it all, right? So two of my favorite drummers was Neil Peart, but it was also Tommy and Marky Ramone. I'm a huge, I'm nuts over the Ramones. I think I saw the Ramones live a dozen times or more.
Sure.
Got to meet Marky, and
I
it's
don't
amazing.
I don't
Amazing,
think they got nearly enough credit for how hammering, consistent, and amazing their drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like a machine.
yeah.
You take those two, and then you take Pigface, Martin's pummeling drumming, or Bill Rieflin, or I could start rattling off all these drummers. But you take all that, you take Budgie from Susie and the Banshees, the Creatures is a big influence. You roll that all in, and that's Chant. So it's driving electronic music, and I'm playing tribal drums on top of it, singing. I face the audience, but I can sit down and wail away at the kit. Now I have two live members for this incarnation of Chant. It'll be Mike that I met from the Skate Nigs. He'll be playing bass, but also he's a great drummer. In fact, he's playing drums for them now that I left, but he'll be joining Chant to play drums. And then Jack, who also played on the record, is in a band in Austin called Bloody Knives. And when I saw him play,
Yeah,
this is like over 5 years ago, I'm like, man, that guy, he plays guitar and approaches guitar like I approach drums, just
Sure.
really intense. You kind of lose yourself. It's a little dangerous because you might fall off the rails, but you just keep going. And that's his approach to guitar. And I asked him if he'd play on the record. I'm thrilled with what he did. And then when we talked, of course, this was pre-COVID, we talked about, hey, maybe we could do some live shows to promote this record. He said, man, I'd love to. And I saw you guys live, and I play drums too, man. I'm like, really? So it's perfect. So in fact, we're having the first full Chant rehearsal all this weekend. Jack's coming down, and we're going to hole up here for Saturday and Sunday and
Nice.
try to play through the new record and a few old favorites. But yeah, it's high energy too, to answer your question. I maybe I got it from being a Ramones fan, but I'm not a big talker live, and I guess I got that from Nine Inch Nails too, right? If you've ever seen them, it's one after another. So maybe it's also from being an opening band. You only have so much time, so you've got to pummel them out and play as many songs as you can. But it's fast and furious, and a cinematic and dynamic experience. Hopefully, that's what we try to go for.
So what you're saying is the rest of us in this scene are all fighting tooth and nail for a decent drummer,
And
you're
all of
just
them.
hoarding like 4 of them in your back pocket. That's Vogue. That's Vogue, dude. Like,
hey man,
share the
could
wealth a
say
little.
that. You could point your finger at Martin, all the great drummers that have played in Pigface.
That's true.
That's
That's
true.
another person that just hoards the shit out of all the good drummers.
Yeah.
See how I can deflect.
So with the intensity that your vocals are coming across at, and the intensity of the constant drum fill that somehow is still rolling along as a good rhythm, do you ever just pass out?
That's why he's doing all that cardio.
That's right. I only got close at a show in Dallas in the middle of the summer at a great club that I love that's still around called Reno's Chop Shop. But Reno's AC was out, and we were playing, and I don't know how hot it was, but you guys are industrial guys, so a lot of times you're playing to a click because you're playing to some degree of programming. The one thing interesting about that is you come out of the gate with so much adrenaline, and it feels slow.
Yeah.
And in this case, I was so hot, my brain was cooking so much that everything was slowing down, and it was more than a decade ago, but I think that's the hottest show I ever played, was actually in Dallas, Texas. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to break away from the music for just a second. I'm like really curious. Like, you play in so many bands, you have so many projects. What are your outside interests?
Cool. That's a good question. I time has been a very interesting topic, right? This past year, because I sometimes don't feel like I have time for anything. I love movies, obviously, and I'm a foodie. I love really, really good food, and I'd say I love mixing drinks. I've never bartended, but I love craft cocktails, and I love really pairing craft cocktails with really good food. I think I would do that if I wasn't a musician. I probably would have loved to go in culinary arts or something like that. Or, in the music videos I've done for Chant and pulled together the filmmakers, especially when we did some videos for the second record that were more like a short movie. I loved that process too. So, um, working on multimedia stuff. But yeah, it's hard to squeeze in a little bit any time for anything else, but definitely just the traditional movie, music, food, things of that nature.
Okay, what was the last good movie that you saw, and did you pair it with a meal?
Ooh.
Oh wow, the last good movie I saw. I haven't been watching a lot of movies. I will say this. I felt like I was the last person on the planet that had not seen Breaking Bad. And I recently went through the whole series about 2 or 3 months ago. Was interested, and I'm of course very interested in soundtracks. So the other thing that I watched recently, that everyone else probably saw before me, was I waited a year till I watched season 4 of Mr. Robot. And
Oh,
I
that was a
watched
good one.
that just last month. So uh, to me, that's very cinematic. So it's not a
Yeah.
movie, but I can't recall a recent movie I watched. I watched those shows, but particularly Mr. Robot. I thought it was so well crafted, and the ending, you know, kind of gave that Vanilla Sky kind of feeling
Yeah.
right at the end. And of course I love the soundtrack to it. I've been listening to that a lot, and so I guess that's how I can answer that one.
No, that was a great. I loved Mr. Robot. I thought that was great, and I loved Christian Slater. Had a great performance in it. So yeah, really cool stuff. Um, I want to back up a little bit now to the album again and touch back on it. You mentioned that this is stuff that you kind of wrote pre-Trump, but to me, when I heard it for the first time, obviously, it really, in a almost foresight kind of way, really hit on what a lot of us were feeling, going through, and had a huge political slant. And I think, again, being a musician that focuses on sound and percussion, and I would think that would be your first thing, and that would be enough for me. I thought the lyrics, the video you did for it, had an incredible message, strength, and power to it. And where you said, I'm not a singer, I loved the vocals for it. It had a lot of edge. And I think, as somebody who does this myself, I love when someone, you don't have to all be Freddie Mercury and have the greatest voice in the world and 10 octave range. If you sing like yourself, and I hear that voice and it sounds true. And that's what I heard in this record from you. What
Well,
was,
thank
I mean, you said it was pre in its own message, but I feel like that political slant was there. And I know a big conversation these days. Should
Sure.
artists be including their politics in their music? And to me, I don't think you can separate art from politics. These are two things that to me go together, because you talk about the Ramones or punk rock or anything like that. How important was it for you to have that message and that warning, I guess, of a demigod, or how it would affect the world in the music you were doing, and how central was it to that theme?
I think that I've been asked this before, hey, is Chant a political band? And my answer immediately is no. And I say that because I don't set out to make political statements.
Sure.
like maybe a Rage Against the Machine, you know, had an intent,
Right.
you know, of what message they're going to deliver through their
Yeah,
music.
that guy
And
was a poli-sci major. That was his thing.
and they do it incredibly well. What I call my lyrics, they pair with chant, is observational. So I write about what I'm observing in the world. So my first album, of course, I was trying to find my voice and what I might write about. I'd never really written lyrics, but what ended up being the theme was observing just society and what divides us. So there's a song about the gun debate. There's a song about sexual preference. There's a song about, you know, differences in religious beliefs. So the second album, I was fascinated with words, and it's called Strong Words for Strong People. So each song has one word title for it, and it's all about themes of what those words mean and what words can really mean to somebody. They can be
Sure.
loaded, or the same word can be not offensive because it's not loaded. And, you know, so I was fascinated. Of course, the third record, Brave New Apocalypse, we talked about that a little bit, you know, and some of the themes. And at that point, that was on my mind. I'm watching, you know, I've been very fortunate to, you know, meet people from all over the world. And the more you travel, the more you know that we're really not too different, all of us.
Sure.
It's you know, the radicals that are pushing the message and dividing us. And so I think the lyrics started coming up for Hydra between 2016 and 2018. So I say it was pre-Trump. That obviously was in the forefront of my mind
Sure.
because it was just bubbling up. And I did take some, you know, some very certain influence, you know, I can grab anything I want, that, hey, I can grab her by the, you know, that I was like, well, I've got to throw that in there, you know,
Right.
or, you know, there were some lines that were definitely inspired by current events. And then some of the others, like the lyrics for Uprising, it was originally a poem that I had written called The Soldier and the Prisoner. And it was about a conversation they were having of the prisoner saying, you know, you're in here with me. You know, look at the shitty job you have. You know, you're in here with me. You're part of the system. You're
Yeah.
not free either, man. So that was kind of that. And it just happened to fit in the story. But I think I observed things, and that's the lyrics that come out. So I happened to be observing everything that was going on leading up to 2019. And then a lot of those lyrics started crafting in
Right.
this. But to answer your first question, should artists include their politics? I think if that's what they want to do, it's art. And if people don't like it, fuck them. You know, I
Yeah.
think for people to say, you're a musician, so, you know, you shouldn't get involved in politics. That's like saying, hey, you're an architect or a real estate Mongol. Stick to your business. Don't get into
Right.
politics. You know, hey, you know, just because I'm a musician doesn't mean I'm not going to participate in a democracy. And if I want to include that in my art and that's what I want to do, and you don't like it, well, fuck you. You know,
Right.
don't listen to it then. But as an artist, are we obligated to when times get really, really dire? I don't know that you're obligated to. I think you should make whatever your soul is telling you to make, because otherwise, you know,
What's
it's
the
not
point?
going to serve you anyway. I mean, we all want other people to like our stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing what you enjoy, even if people like it, you're still not going to be happy, right? So
Yeah. No,
I
I
think
love that.
that's where it is. Yeah.
So we've because Collin's back with me now, and in the interview, we've reached that important part of the interview where I fall asleep and turn the microphone over to say, it's okay, Collin, gear nerd out. It is time for you to discuss with a very important technical expert in Bradley
Oh no.
your nerd ass shit. Go ahead.
We'd only go as deep as you want to go. We don't have to go more. My first question I got on this though is the clarity of your drums on these recordings, the punch that you have. how much is that of that is actually the kit in a room, and how much of that is sample replacement and things like that? Just because if it is more actual kit, I'm gonna feel like shit as an engineer because
Your
it's
snare
so
sounds
good.
like shit.
It doesn't. That's the thing. It doesn't sound like shit.
No, his doesn't. I was talking to you. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Well, so I have to be on as far as the live drums, no sample replacement. But that being said, what you're hearing on the record, of course, is programmed drumming that I start out by programming drumming. I write everything in Reason. I've been using Reason since 1.0. I guess it's up to, I think 12 is about to come out. It's the DAW that I know, and I like what you can do with the different drum machines that come with it. I've collected many drum samples and sounds, including sampling myself and then looping that back into the drum machine. That's one of the reasons why I like the drum machine. You can drop individual wave files. So sometimes those programmed drums get lower in the mix to leave room for the live drums. An example of that would be towards the end of Uprising, where there's that crazy drum solo and guitar center going, right?
yeah.
But those live drums you hear are the live drums. There's no sample replacement. But on President God, I'd say it's 60-40, right? There's a lot of programmed drums in there where I had some really cool electronic distortion that I added to my previously live clips. And then I'm playing my live drums on top of it. And then, what you get is this, wow, there's 5 drummers playing at once kind of sound, right? And I think there were, I'm not exact, I think there were 88 live drum channel tracks on President God. And, I'd have to mix them, bounce them down, carve them out to make sonic room for everything else. And in the limited edition that that hopefully we can talk about in a minute, and Ken, you should be getting one any day now.
I'm excited.
It's got a bonus CD that has an instrumental version of the album. So no lyrics, it's just you can hear the music to it. And then 3 of the tracks are just the enhanced drum mixes. So
That's awesome.
You should be getting that shortly.
Well, I'll be over as soon as that arrives.
Yeah, I think when you just said that it was 88 live, I think Collin had an aneurysm real quick. I watched his eye twitch. And
hey, there were, and I see this on Sound and Shadows forums about when do you abandon things. There were moments, because usually I do not. That's the other thing about Hydra is this is the first album I mixed and produced 100% myself. I always get it to like the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, and I bring in somebody to produce it, partly because I need that benefit. And
sure.
I think it's very
another set of
valuable
ears. Yeah.
for somebody to say, look, you don't need those four bars. I mean, obviously Sasha worked on the previous record, and it was amazing, to get his knowledge and work into that record. I could have never made it sound that way. And of course he was very coy and go, I just did a few things, you really did it. He was really, really sweet about that. But no, there'd be something, I'd send him a mix and then it'd come back from him and just sound like explosive. Like, how did you do that? But for Hydra, it was partly, I talked to him, I talked to a few other people about possibly mixing it. But I think the thing was I got a few test mixes back from a few friends. And by the time I'd been working on it for the whole year to record it, mixed the drums, then I had to do the Pigface tour. Then I fell and hit my head. That's a whole nother story. And I got delayed. And by the time I really needed to mix it, the album itself was a year and 3 or 4 months old. I was watching what, Ken, you said, everything unfold in front of me of what I had written about.
Sure.
And I felt behind the ball, and I'm like, I've got to mix this myself because I'm the only one that's going to be able to make it hear how it sounds in my head. And so that's how I ended up mixing it all myself. But there were times, Collin, with those 88 drums, I'm like, I can't do this. It's going to end up sounding terrible because I don't know what I'm doing. And I just was patient spent all summer long and all fall leading into 2020 reading articles about compression, reading articles about EQ. I mean, I'd learned a lot over the past 15 years, but I just kept focusing and playing it against reference mixes until I got it the way I wanted. We recorded the live drums at a studio in Austin, had amazing mic set up there. My friend Adam Donovan was the engineer on those live drums, and he recorded the live drums for the previous record as well. I know he had some Neumanns for the overheads, and I'd have to check out all the other mics we use, man. But I'm a drummer in that way. I'm not much of a gearhead. I don't know much about mics.
Sounds fantastic.
And
Well,
I will say that, yeah, I know you're selling yourself short here, that like, I don't know what I'm doing to make this happen. You 100% did. Like,
well,
honestly, I mean, again, from a percussional standpoint, this was prolific for me. It was of the kind of the new wave of industrial that I think has been coming out and setting a standard again and really making this genre relevant and important again. Your drums for it, I would put in the top gear for that. Like, it was really something else. So kudos on that.
well,
Done.
thank you.
So one last
gear question. Go ahead, nerd out, brother.
Because on that note, the punch and clarity on this album is so intense. What's your go-to compressor? Plug-in or real?
I used see, this is where the gearheads, there was a compressor suite that I used that was available in the Rack and Reason. I want to say the C90. I'm gonna have to look it up for you, my man. But then a producer friend of mine turned me on to the Fab Filter software. The Pro Q or whatever it is, the EQer, really helps you figure out which, what has too much energy, what you can what's clashing. It was very helpful for me to learn to where, what I want to do is be able to get to where I can do it by ear and I'm not using software to figure it out. But however you arrive there, I think, right, is we're all artists. Everybody that's on Sound and Shadows. I by the way, I don't participate as much as I should, but I mean, I'm reading it every day. It's amazing what you've done with it. And, I think however you arrive to what you want your album to sound like, it's the right way, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't have any hardware compressors. I think they're just so damn expensive, and the only, I have a Focusrite that I used for tracking the vocals. We went through, I believe, a Neve console and some Warm Audio and Manley preamps for the drums in that studio. I mean, really amazing gear. That's probably testament to how good of a drum sound we got on that. It's definitely the happiest I've been with drums on a Chant record, for sure.
Did I nod my head appropriately and look engaged, as though I knew any of the words that the two of you were just talking then, or did it seem like I was?
You bobbed in time.
Awesome. Like, that's just, what I'm going for is as an actor. So my last big question for you is, you mentioned a couple times Sounds and Shadows. We're a music review page. That's what we do. And so I always love to ask artists, especially someone who's, to me, like I said, really engaged with a next wave of, whether it's industrial or goth or music. What is it that you're listening to right now that's getting you excited?
Well, so I have to answer honestly, right? And we mentioned
Please
it
do.
earlier in this, it was that this whole past year, I've been really listening to a lot of ambient music because I've
Cool.
tinnitus pretty bad and I'm trying to treat it. But I went back through the whole Brian Eno catalog. I think all of
You're wrong.
2018 and 2019, I must have listened to the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack a billion times.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, I've been listening to some of Matt Quayle's
Very
compositions because
Yeah.
I just finished Mr. Robot. So I've been listening to that score. So a lot of music scores. I'm Hans Zimmer fan. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do with the new Dune. Right. I'm very interested in that.
I am super excited and optimistic. I mean, that's my favorite sci-fi novel. I love it dearly. I've loved both the Sci-Fi Channel version and, of course, the original movie version for different reasons. But I don't know, they might really get it with this, and I hope so. And also, everybody in this movie is daddy. I, that I noticed that too. I don't know how that happened, but they found like every dude over 40 that's hot in the entire world and put them in this fucking film. So good for them on that. Little candy.
Yeah, as far as within our scene, I've been addicted to Clack for the last 2 years as well.
Matt is a dear friend. I love Matt and Eric. Like what they do is incredible, both in the music, but also
my daily life enjoyment.
Something, with Amaranth, like we're like this. Bands don't have to be too serious and be up their own ass. Like we had an interview on Monday with Rodney Anonymous of Dead Milkmen, but also a lot in the industrial scene.
Yeah.
And just that idea that industrial music or goth can be freaking fun. It doesn't always have to be something so over the top serious. And I think Matt and Eric do such an amazing job of capturing that tongue-in-cheek humor mixed with perfectly done EBM, EDM, to give you that effect of the music, but with just having fun at the same time.
Yeah, no, definitely love those guys. We had a bond because we played some weird festival in Texas, like, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago now. And we were at Cold Waves, and I was supposed to play with the Crooks, but they couldn't get their visas. And so I was there, and Caustic asked me to get on and play drums with them.
That's awesome.
And Matt and I guess we had met before, but we were talking about that festival, like, weren't you at that festival way back when? And so we kind of bonded over that. And then we played at Terminus together. With Boot Blacks, they were there. I saw Clack there for the first time, and so yeah, they blew me away. But yeah, I love his sense of humor. I guess I should take note because I take myself pretty seriously. but
Hey,
as
there's
you can
nothing
see,
wrong with that. I just I love the fun.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty laid back. I think people meet me and they're like, "You're so calm," but because they see the Chant show and I'm just enraged and fucking going nuts, and it's an amplified version of all the frustration and rage I feel, sometimes, and the emotion I feel.
I'm sure if you were on that level all the time, you'd have been dead 5 years ago because you'd have blown up. So
yeah, I got to calm down at some point, right?
I think that's another glorious secret of the goth industrial scene is that, the music that we make and project, and it does have that, whether it's the depressed angle of like goth or like the intensity and fury of industrial, but that's to get that out so you don't live that every day of your life. You know what I mean? And most of the people we talk to, interview and in the goth scene are happy-go-lucky, chipper dudes, and I think that's something that's missed a lot is you always assume that the music or the portrayal up on stage is necessarily who you are. And a lot of times it's a 10% of who you are, but it's what you needed to express and get out of you, and I think that gets lost a lot.
It does. I think as artists, we also see the world and experience it, I think, on a more intense level.
Sure.
So I always tell, people in more vanilla life or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I old enough where I see people that I grew up with, and that were so shitty in high school, and they became some, not dogging it, but they became some insurance salesman or whatever they're doing. I'm like, it doesn't matter how successful I've ever been, the music journey I've been on, I can guarantee my life's been happier and more exciting and
Yes.
fulfilling. But at the same time, I feel things really strongly. We all do as artists. And I think
Sure.
the lows are really fucking low sometimes. And it can be really tough. So it's good that Sounds and Shadows has done what it's done, because as a community, you can go, people can get advice. They can see that they're not the only one feeling that way, that they've written records and nobody's paying attention to them. And I've toured so much, but I still have to go to the day job. What's going on? It's like, I've kind of let all that go. It's part of the journey, and I think we
Yeah.
all feel that. I battle melancholy and depression all the time.
Sure.
But I think that that music and the community keeps me busy and focused. And I think that's one of the best things that we can all do, is do that and be there for each other. And I'm not the best at social media, which is
Sure.
a nail in the coffin for a band trying to
Part
get
of the name of
noticed
the
these
game right
days.
now, for sure. Yeah.
It got to be where when I was touring and playing a lot, that 90% of the time was booking, promoting, and doing all the business, and 10% was actually playing my instrument.
Sure.
And I just, in 2016, I had enough. And that's when I got a chance to play with a lot of other bands and get in touch with my instrument again. So, but yeah, like you said, though, yeah, I think there's a lot of really great fun and mischievousness in our scene, that
There is.
there are certain artists that are really good about shining a spotlight on that. And I think that's important.
Agree.
You started to bring this up earlier. What are you excited about that's coming up?
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna plug my own shit, man.
Plug it. It's time for that.
I'm excited about the vinyl and the limited edition finally coming out for Hydra. So you'll probably show it, right? But so this is see if I can get it on here.
Yeah, get it in the center there and hold it. That looks awesome. I love that you can actually see kind of the scales on the album cover there. That's a really cool effect.
So it's 180.
Oh, that's sexy. Oh yeah, take it off, girl. I like it. That's sexy.
And so one of the things I've done for all of my albums, is I make 100 limited edition copies of it. The first album was an actual metal book that I had a friend at a sign company cut, and they're metal plates with the lyrics inside it. They obviously are long sold out. Some people still will come to a show and have it and be like, look, I've got one of the 100.
That's awesome.
The second album was a series of posters, and the third, we did a religious cassette tape with one of those religious tracks. I mean, it was phenomenal. So it was like a cult.
Yeah.
So, and those are all sold out. So this time we printed a lyric book. It's a 24-page lyric book.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So it's got all of the lyrics, but if you flip it over on this side, it's got the making of, and it has all the original lyrics before they were refined.
You're in front of your microphone there. There you go.
Oh, here we go.
Very cool.
But yeah, it's got all of the notes and kind of how the album came to be, some of the art that was sketching in my sketchbook. And then there's I only made 100 of these. There are 100 metal challenge coins.
Oh, cool.
So these come with the limited edition as well. And a lot of people are getting them this week that pre-ordered them. There's still some left. There's about, I think, 30 left. So you can go to chantproject.com/store to see the limited edition.
And we'll make sure to put up a link to that in the
Cool.
interview when we post it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first time I've put Chant on vinyl. Really pleased with how it came out.
Yeah.
It was just a long road to get it out. And I know, I think Chem Lab and some others are really trying to get their vinyl out. Phildo from the Skate Nigs was really waiting for a while. So it's been a tough year for a lot of people getting that
Yeah.
out. But
Oh,
It's tough and it's expensive. And I always love to see that, like, especially with the coin and the books. To me, to have a connection with your biggest fans, people who, like you said, are buying a special edition, are that invested. What kind of interesting art are you doing on top of that or putting into it to give a connection or experience with these fans that want to go that extra mile and get something like that? And that's so cool to see things like that. Like, I know your friend Kurt, I love the stuff he does in terms of like art pieces going along at shows. And just, I love to see that with bands making something multimedia outside the music itself that gives the fans a chance at a connection like that. So absolutely phenomenal. That's awesome.
I like
Cool.
shiny things.
That is a phenomenal. That was that was awesome. I think that's really great and to look forward to. Are you going to get out on the road anytime soon?
I think that's the plan. I'm basically going to rehearse until I really feel like we have a live show that tops what we've done before. That's kind of one of my rules
Yeah.
for my albums and my live shows. As long as I'm not stepping on any bands that I'm playing with toes,
Sure.
that's the rule, is don't get in the way of anyone else. But we put on the most elaborate show, intense show we can, and we've just got to get together as a band and start playing, see if all the songs on the record work live, and which ones are the old ones I want to bring back, and just get it road ready, so to speak.
Sure.
I would love to tour again, and I hope I get an opportunity to, especially to showcase this new record. But I don't have anything booked right now. I'm double vaxxed. I have been. I think that's important.
Yes.
It seems like live shows are coming back. I've seen some really big, concerts get reconfirmed. Hopefully they don't
Sure.
slip
Cold
again.
waves, and yeah, we're starting to see festivals happen again as
Yeah,
people get back.
I'm so happy that I know that was really tough for Jason to have to put that on pause that year.
Sure.
You know,
Not just on Jason, on a lot of us.
yeah, of
That was
course.
hard. I lived for that.
That's therapy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is that event every year. It's turned into such an important time to see everybody that you only know virtually, and then you get to see them there in person for sure.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely going to be some live chant shows, probably some in Texas by the end of the year. I doubt, I think tours get booked out well in advance, so I'll start looking into that. But I hope in 2022 I can play as many shows as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So if there's any independent bookers that watch this, get in touch with me.
You need to
'cause
get that
I'm
on.
going to be ready.
I'm really excited. This was wonderful talking with you, Bradley. I love this album. I love the flavor that it brings. That, like I said, I mean, a lot of things in industrial got me. You see retreads of the past and overlap, and I really feel, especially because of the level of percussion and changes that were happening and the flow of it, this was a special album and something really interesting that I highly recommend to everyone. Collin, do you have any parting shots?
I wish you hadn't done that right then. I wasn't ready.
Oh,
I
my
wasn't
bad.
ready.
Katy, do you have any parting shots to add?
I just want to thank you for meeting with us tonight. I think that everything that you do is incredible, and you have this amazing history within many scenes that is so fascinating. And I hope in the future, maybe at a future concert or something, that we're all able to hang out and really hash out the beats in person.
Indeed.
Thanks,
just
Katy. I hope so too.
I just want a shiny coin.
I really want a coin too.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I'm
all get.
sorry,
We're gonna get
that's-
coins then. We're gonna have.
That's
to
all I
get,
can
yeah.
think
Yeah.
about right now.
I screwed up. There's only one coming to you guys. So
That's
what's
right.
going to happen
We'll
is
share.
Well,
We'll both take
I'll-
turns rubbing it.
I'll
It'll
buy.
be fine.
I can buy one.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
just buy
flip a
one.
coin for who gets to keep it.
that's right. You pick the side, and then when you'll have an argument on what you're going to do to finish your record, then one of you picks the President God side, one of you picks the Hydra side, and you flip it, and then whoever wins wins.
I love that. Although Collin and I share a brain, so weirdly enough, we never argue. Like, but I love that idea, and we'll start doing it on Sounds and Shadows. Like, well,
Yeah.
whose turn is it to ask the next question? We'll flip the Hydra coin. I love it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
Bradley, this has been great. I'm so excited. Everybody needs to go in the link below and check out this album. And from us here at Sounds and Shadows, keep it fucking dark, you.
All hail the resurrection, ready for the new election. All praise the congregation that's paying for a God like me. Fuck your souls, I want your votes to restore this ideological deity. I'll make you God great again while the fate trickles down to you and the power to me. President God, for the resurrection. President God, preaching destruction, preaching hate, preaching fear so you can relate. Convince you all that you're not the same. Divide you up so I can chip the blame. And while you're distracted, fighting each other, raping your sisters, killing your brothers, I got my own deals and then I grab anything I want. So it's in God's hands. President God, for the resurrection. President God, for re-election. President God, for the resurrection. President God, for re-election. No more truth, no more lies. Just non-stop chaos to blur the lines. No more left, no more right. No term limits,